Welcome to the Fantasy and Frames Mental Health Awareness Series. I'm your host, Zach, at FF Triple Batman. Fantasy and Frames fully supports mental health awareness. This series will come out every Monday morning through the summer on our YouTube channel. Subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss any episodes. We will discuss a specific topic in each episode. If you ever have any questions, please leave a comment, or you can DM me if you'd like to keep it private. I could not think of a better person to talk about mental health with than an expert, my wife, Meghan.
So domestic violence can be a very tough topic to discuss, which is all the more reason to talk about it. A significant component of domestic violence is the mental health impact, which is why it is part of the series.
So I want to start by sharing some statistics from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States during 1 year. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. This includes a range of behaviors such as slapping, shoving, and pushing, or in some cases might not be considered domestic violence. On a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. Only 34% of people who are injured by intimate partners receive medical care for their injuries. Studies suggest that there is a relationship between intimate partner violence and depression and suicidal behavior. And victims of domestic violence are also at higher risk for developing addictions to alcohol, tobacco, or drugs.
Some of those statistics are extremely concerning, and they only seem to be getting worse as time passes. Since domestic violence is rarely talked about, I do not think the general public realizes just how prevalent it really is. It often starts off small and builds up over time. So I want to start talking about the earlier red flags and warning signs. Then you can get yourself or even help someone close to you out of a toxic relationship before it crosses the threshold to domestic violence and possibly result in serious injury or even death.
So an act of domestic violence does not just happen randomly. It comes from somewhere, and typically it builds over time until there is a violent outburst. As Meghan just mentioned, there are red flags. It is important to pay attention to these because you may need to get help yourself before you do something you regret. You may need help getting out of a toxic relationship before it is too late. Or you may need to help a family member or friend remove themselves from a potentially harmful situation.
Exactly. I have a visual to help better understand the cycle of abuse. As you can see here, tension builds up until an abusive incident occurs. In the earlier stages, the tension is excused due to the pressures of life or other points of conflict. But once an abusive incident occurs, it can no longer be excused. It is important to understand that the abusive incident can be verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. A lot of domestic violence survivors recall the abuse starting out as verbal and emotional before becoming physical and sexual. Then the honeymoon phase happens, in which the abuser apologizes, shows remorse, and often begs for forgiveness. They may shower the victim with love and affection and promise the abuse will never happen again. There is a period of calm where the abuse stops or slows after this honeymoon period. The abuser may continue to ask for forgiveness or make positive gestures, but these tend to reduce in sincerity over time. Each time the cycle occurs, the calm phase gets shorter and shorter, and the tension building phase gets longer and longer. By the time the honeymoon and calm phases almost completely disappear, the victim finds themselves stuck in the cycle with no escape for a variety of reasons we will discuss in this episode.
So this cycle has the same tornado effect that you referenced in the cycle of anxiety episode. While it may not seem like a problem in the beginning, it quickly becomes concerning over time. So how do we identify red flags of domestic violence?
Domestic violence is simply a pattern of behavior used to gain or maintain power and control of another. The power and control wheel is a common tool utilized by counselors to understand the subtle and continuous components of domestic violence. It can be easily found with a Google search of power and control wheel. Keep in mind, not all 8 themes of the wheel need to be present in order for your experience to be classified as domestic violence. Abuse usually starts small with one of the themes and then builds up until the abuser has full control of every aspect of your life. In no particular order, the first theme of the wheel is using male privilege, which consists of treating them like a servant, making all the big decisions, acting like the master of the castle, and being the one to define men's and women's roles.
In simple terms, we live in a patriarchal society, which has created traditional family roles. By that, I mean the man is supposed to be the head of the household and the breadwinner. We know that a woman can make decisions in the partnership or make more money, but the patriarchal society has enabled this behavior of male privilege. So, Megan, what is the next theme?
The second theme of the wheel is using children, which consists of making them feel guilty about the children, using the children to relay messages, using visitation to harass them, and threatening to take the children away.
Unfortunately, I've heard stories of the courts allow this behavior to occur because domestic violence is often difficult to prove. What is the next theme?
The third theme of the wheel is using economic abuse, which consists of preventing them from getting or keeping a job, making them ask for money, giving them an allowance, taking their money, and not letting them know about or have access to family income.
Think about it. You need money for everything. If you do not have access to any money, it makes it extremely difficult to have the means to leave. You need money for transportation, shelter, food, clothing, everything. The thought of trying to leave without financial support is daunting for so many victims. What is the next theme?
The fourth theme of the wheel is using emotional abuse, which consists of putting them down, making them feel bad about themselves, calling them names, making them think they're crazy, playing mind games, humiliating them, and making them feel guilty.
Some of you may have experienced this before. If not, think about what we have learned earlier in the series about the power of thought. It would be difficult to motivate yourself to leave a toxic relationship if all of that emotional abuse causes you to think you deserve all of the abuse you're experiencing. And if you try to leave, you will forever be alone since you are not worthy of being with a better partner. Your self-image would be shattered. That is why it is so important to recognize the red flags early and get out before you lose a part of yourself. What is the next theme?
The fifth theme of the wheel is using isolation, which consists of controlling what they do, who they see and talk to, what they read, and where they go, limiting their outside involvement, and even using jealousy to justify their actions.
The worst thing you can do to someone you care about is to walk away from them when they're continuing to stay in the abusive relationship. I know it is difficult to watch, but if you stay around, then you will be able to help them get out whenever they are ready.
So the next theme of the wheel, the sixth theme, is using intimidation, which consists of making them afraid by using looks, actions, or gestures, smashing things, destroying their property, abusing pets, and displaying weapons.
This is exactly why it's still domestic violence, even though the victim was never physically touched. Again, it comes back to trying to control your partner. What is the next theme?
The seventh theme of the wheel is using coercion and threats, which consists of making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt them, threatening to leave them, to commit suicide, or to report the welfare, making them drop charges, and making them do illegal things.
Threats and coercion are extremely effective methods of controlling someone. You take your partner seriously, and you do not want to risk them just bluffing or giving empty threats. You feel obligated to comply because your own morality is being used against you. So what is the last theme?
The eighth and final theme of the wheel is minimizing, denying, and blaming, which consists of making light of the abuse and not taking their concerns about it seriously, saying the abuse didn't happen, shifting responsibility for abusive behavior, and saying they caused it. A lot of people know this behavior as gaslighting.
I am glad gaslighting came up at the end here. It has become a buzzworthy word recently. However, a lot of people use it incorrectly. and they believe someone is gaslighting them when there is a disagreement about what has happened. Can you explain exactly what gaslighting is?
Gaslighting can vary in severity and intensity. In its most extreme form, it is psychological abuse in which a person or group causes someone to question their own sanity, memories, or perception of reality. People who experience gaslighting may feel confused, anxious, or as though they cannot trust themselves. In its most basic form, someone is ignorant or lacks the emotional intelligence necessary to process their own emotions, let alone validate yours. Thus, when they do not understand or agree with your emotional reaction, they can not only invalidate your experience, but also react in a way that makes you question your own experience.
So if someone is gaslighting you and you just said it could make you question your own experience, how do you get out of that mental trap?
It's important to validate your own thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Relying on others for that validation is a slippery slope that makes you more susceptible to the negative effects of gaslighting. If you are confident in yourself, your ability to recall memories, and your ability to view events objectively before applying your individual interpretation, in those situations, you simply have to agree to disagree and move on. Arguing with another about their subjective experience or defending your own subjective experience is a waste of your precious time and energy. If the person actually wanted to listen and try to understand the situation from your point of view, they would have made a genuine effort from the beginning.
All right. So I know this was a challenging topic to discuss, but I appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you, Megan, for sharing so much valuable information. Thank you all as well. We hope you were able to get some information from this that will help you or someone you know. We will be back next Monday at 9 a.m. for episode 13 to discuss generational mental health trends. Again, the best way to watch this series is to subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel. If you think you may be a victim of domestic violence, text START, START, to 88788 for support and assistance. And if you are struggling or having suicidal thoughts, then immediately call or text 988. That is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and is available 24/7. Thank you all, and we will see you next week.